been getting a lot of requests to see exactly what the SEO testing program looked like at Tipalti. So this is a look under the hood. A few notes: I had to format this in a slightly new format, but this is essentially the format that we used for our testing program. And for those not familiar, I just wanted to pull up a quick Hrefs report that shows a little bit of the growth that we were able to achieve at Tipalti. Granted, this growth was not 100% attributed to SEO experiments. SEO experiments helped the growth along. They were an aid to the growth. They were not the source of the growth. This was a traditional aggregator, content-driven SEO strategy for B2B SaaS. So once again, SEO testing was a help in this growth process. It wasn't the entire program. So without further ado, this is the testing dashboard, and this follows a pretty straightforward process. When we have a URL that we want to test, and by the way, I should mention all of these are single URL tests. They're not A/B split tests, meaning we're measuring these in a time-based before and after fashion. So we're measuring the test before we make a change and the test after we make a change. And in most cases, we're testing the title. In other cases, we're doing a featured snippet test or a full page content refresh. Those are the majority of the experiments that we did and measured. With that said, here's how we did it. So we tracked the page URL. We tied every page to a primary keyword. We indicate what variable we're testing. There's a status column, and this would go from everywhere from the analysis and setup of the test, the launch of the test. We track when we indexed it, benchmark the data. We indicate whether an experiment was live, whether it needs reporting, whether it's complete. And then if it's just an identified opportunity that might be waiting to get tested, it would go in there. So that's kind of the workflow. And then we would also include the control record and the variant record. So that way, if let's say that we do a hypothesis and we write a new title tag and we're not sure if it's going to be better, we might have to go back to the control if the test is not successful. So we would want to keep track of that control page title so that we can go back to it if we need to. We'd always make sure to index your SEO tests. So these were our index request dates, our end dates. And nowadays, we were doing it for 2 weeks at a time. Nowadays, I like to extend those tests out a little bit longer. And then we would track the primary keyword ranking at the time of our test. And then when we went back to measure it, we would track the keyword ranking after. And then this would give us an idea of whether or not we moved up or down in the rankings based on our experiment or our hypothesis. And sometimes it wasn't based on our experiment. As many of you know, some of these are natural fluctuations. You may go up or down 1 or 2 positions just due to volatility in the search algorithm. But when you start to see larger swings, like let's see, like position 25 to position 14, for example, 11 positions, that can oftentimes be attributed to the test itself. And so then we can be a little bit more confident that what we did may have caused that ranking improvement. There is some proprietary data here. Tipalti's asked that I not give information about basically proprietary company data. So the clicks data is not available here, but I will show just in percentage growth some of the percent changes that we could see in click-through rates. So some of these click-through rates were doubling our click-through rates. Some of them were up or down. Some of them didn't change at all. And then we would indicate an inference. So was this test positive, negative, or neutral? Do we want to keep the variant? Do we want to extend the test, or do we want to revert to the control? So making a decision, and these decisions are not always extremely clear-cut. Sometimes if you see that not much has changed in that test, you might be like, this is a neutral test. I don't know if I want to keep it, or or which one I want to go with. It's a use your best judgment kind of thing in those scenarios. But of course, if you see that one of your titles is performing better, you've gone from position 12, as in the case of this one, Nacho Rules. You've gone from position 12 to position 4. That's 8 spaces. You're probably going to want to keep the variant. So that's a pretty easy decision. Or this one, how does PayPal work, going from position 6 to position 1? This right here, this is a program total. So this is tracking all of the experiments, and I'm going to scroll down just so you guys can see sort of how deep this goes. Quite a few experiments here. Just in the sheet alone, we're at 586. So of those experiments, this right here, this is like 2,000 keyword positions from these, and this is, this is including the negatives. This is let's see here. This is including the negatives in total. You can see down here some 2,055. This is the total keyword positions that we earned through the SEO testing program. And again, these are not all title experiments, but most of them are. So you can see all of the title tests that we did here. We did a lot of content refresh experiments, a lot of featured snippet experiments as well. In those instances, we would use like a Google Sheet, for the original content versus the after content, so that we could keep track of the original content just in case we ever needed to roll it back. Rarely did we do that in content experiments, but you never know. Sometimes you can have a content experiment, not a whole refresh, do worse. Our intention is to do better on page refreshes, but they sometimes do worse. The other thing to note is that on these featured snippet experiments, it's a binary result. It's a binary outcome. When you're testing for the featured snippet, it's pretty clear. If you get that featured snippet, then it's a successful test. It's positive. If you don't get that featured snippet, it's negative. There's not really much of a middle ground or a neutral place to be with featured snippets, because you rewrite the answer, and as long as you're within striking distance, and as long as your answer is actually competitive enough, at least in the mind of the algorithm, to be better and to be worthy of that featured snippet, Google will give you that featured snippet, and that will be a success. Otherwise, might not be good enough, and you can retest that, so you can go back, rewrite it, and try to earn it again. So that is what, in a nutshell, this is what Tipalti's SEO test, at least the SEO testing arm of Tipalti's much broader organic search program looked like. Hope you enjoyed it, and reach out if you would like more information.